You know that feeling, right? You get injured, you do all the stretches, all the exercises, but the pain just sticks around. It's incredibly frustrating. Well, today, we're diving into a huge shift that's happening in physical therapy, and it's all about the powerful and, honestly, often ignored connection between our minds and our physical recovery. So, what's going on here? Why is it that two people can have the exact same injury, but their recovery is like night and day? It turns out the answer might have less to do with our muscles and a whole lot more to do with what's happening upstairs in our minds. Well, this is what experts call the pain trap. And it makes a certain kind of sense, right? You feel pain, so your first instinct is to stop moving, to protect yourself. But here's the twist. That lack of movement often backfires, making you stiffer, weaker, and actually trapping you in this vicious cycle. It's the reason why sometimes PT feels like you're just spinning your wheels. Now, at the very core of this trap is something called pain catastrophizing. And let's be clear, this isn't about being dramatic or exaggerating. It's a very real mental state where your brain essentially puts a giant red flag on a pain signal, treating it like an extreme threat. You start to feel completely helpless, and the story you tell yourself about the pain just gets darker and darker. And you can see how this creates a downward spiral. It all starts with an injury. The pain happens, but then those catastrophizing thoughts kick in and amplify it. That creates this deep fear of movement. You start thinking, oh, if I move that way, I'm just going to make it worse. So what do? You avoid it. You become inactive. And that, ironically, leads to more stiffness, more weakness, and yep, more pain. You've walked right into the trap. And this isn't just a theory. The research is crystal clear on how critical these psychological factors are. One major study, for example, actually identified 4 distinct types of patients based on their mindset. And guess what they found? The group with the highest levels of both pain catastrophizing and a depressed mood had the absolute worst recovery outcomes, even after going through physical therapy. It's proof positive that you can't just treat the body and ignore the mind. Which brings us to this incredible evolution happening in physical therapy. The most forward-thinking PTs are moving beyond just muscles and joints, and they're starting to treat the most important organ in recovery, the brain. And the key to this whole thing is behavioral therapy. At its heart, it's a super practical action-first approach. The idea is simple but really profound. If we learn these unhelpful behaviors, like avoiding movement out of fear, then we can also unlearn them. We can learn new, healthier habits to take their place. This quote from Stat Pearls Publishing really nails it. See, instead of spending years analyzing why the fear is there, the focus is on taking real, concrete steps to overcome it. The behavior itself is seen as the problem, and the solution is to actively learn your way out of it. So, what does this actually look like in a PT's office? Well, it's all about this powerful new toolkit they're using, one that's filled not just with exercises for the body, but with strategies for the mind. I mean, look at this. A modern physical therapist toolkit is just packed with these kinds of cognitive behavioral skills. It's about setting clear goals to build confidence, using things like attention diversion to shift your focus away from the pain, and pacing your activity to gently prove to your brain that, hey, movement is safe again. And one of the most powerful tools in the box is cognitive restructuring. It is literally about changing the story you're telling yourself. So instead of thinking this pain means I'm causing more damage, you learn to reframe it as, you know what, hurt doesn't always equal harm. Or realizing that a flare-up isn't a sign you're failing, it's just a normal bump in the road to recovery. You're basically recalibrating a faulty alarm system in your brain. That fear we talked about? It gets tackled head-on with a technique called graded exposure. The idea is brilliant in its simplicity. You start with a tiny, totally manageable level of an activity you've been scared of. Then, slowly, systematically, you increase it. Each little step is proof to your brain that this movement is safe, and bit by bit, you dismantle the fear that was holding you prisoner. Okay, this all sounds great, right? But the real question is, does it actually work? Let's take a look at the evidence, because this mind-body approach is backed by some seriously fascinating research. All right, let's break down this data because it's pretty wild. A huge review of 15 different trials looked at this stuff. They found that graded activity, which is basically just focusing on doing more exercise over time, was only a tiny bit better than doing nothing. And get this, it was no better than any other kind of exercise. But now look at that last row. When they compared that physical approach to graded exposure, the psychological one we just talked about, there was no statistical difference. That tells us the mental game is just as powerful as the physical one. The study's conclusion says it all. Simply doing more exercise is not the magic bullet we thought it was. The real takeaway here is that the psychological part, the how and the why you approach movement, which is what graded exposure is all about, is every bit as crucial as the movement itself. So you see, this mind-body thing isn't just some neat little technique. It's part of a massive shift in how we think about physical healing. We are moving toward a much more holistic future. I mean, just look at the journey. Physical therapy really got its start in the early 20th century with a purely mechanical focus, right? Helping polio patients and soldiers. Then it grew and expanded. But today we are in a totally new era, one that's all about integrating the mind and the body. The future is all about creating care that's truly personalized and sees the whole picture. And you better believe technology is just pouring fuel on this fire. Telehealth is making care available to everyone, everywhere. Wearable tech gives us real-time data to see what's really going on. And in the very near future, things like AI and predictive analytics could help therapists create treatment plans with a level of precision we've just never seen before. So if you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this. Your mindset is not some separate, fluffy thing. It is absolutely central to your recovery. How you think about your pain, the story you tell yourself, it can fundamentally change your actual physical experience of it. And that leaves us with one last kind of mind-blowing question. If our minds really have this much power over something as primal and overwhelming as chronic pain, just think about what else in our lives, in our health, and in our own potential they might be able to reshape.